Those stories shortly, but first we start in London, where the decision for London's Transport Authority, Transport for London, to cancel Uber's license has shocked the capital, with some questioning the reasons behind the decision. Wion's London Bureau Chief Mandy Clarke explains.
Black cabs might be the iconic image of London, but they're often 3 times the cost of an Uber car, which is why the taxi hailing app is the cab of choice for 3.5 million Londoners. Uber also provides work for 40,000 drivers, including Ali Banaras.
For you personally, how much is Uber kind of your main wage?
I do it full time, so definitely.
Banaras believes London Mayor Sadiq Khan was behind the decision.
The mayor constantly on, like these sort of radios and everything, and they were, all against Uber, the private hire drivers, and you had everyone for black cabs.
And some newspapers point out a more serious undertone to the decision: racism. Tony Travers with the London School of Economics agrees it could be a factor.
Well, I doubt the Mayor of London, who is himself of South Asian origin, was unaware of the fact that Uber drivers tend, they're not exclusively, to be South Asian, and traditional taxi drivers in London tend, they're not exclusively, to be white British. Now, some newspapers have argued there's an equalities issue here, which there may be.
Transport for London has come under increasing criticism for cancelling the Uber license, and many believe it bowed to pressure from the black cab lobby group.
There's now a petition to keep Uber in London and a call to boycott black cabs. And there's a greater worry that it gives the message that London is not open for business.
More generally, there is a question about the image it sends out, about London as a place for disruptive new technology. Would it sort of put off entrepreneurs, thinking if it's too disruptive, won't we be allowed to operate?
But Banaras believes Uber will get their license back.
They'll get it back. I think they just wanted Uber on the table, really, and sort a few things out.
Uber is appealing the decision, and that process can take years, with many believing they will win. Mandy Clarke, Wion, London.
Already got perspective on the story. Let's go straight to London, where we're joined now by our correspondent and a UK Bureau Chief, Mandy Clarke. Mandy, how surprised were some of the Uber drivers there when it came to this decision about the license, but also hints of racism?
The license took most of London and the Uber drivers very much by surprise. 40,000 drivers really depend on Uber as a source of income. That's the size of a small city here in the UK. It's an incredibly large amount to affect the economy as well. So certainly the decision surprised people. But there was always hints of racism, because black cabs are notorious for making life difficult for Uber drivers. They don't let them park at certain taxi ranks. They have held protests about Uber. And there is an obvious divide where, as the London School of Economics pointed out, by and large, they're white working class, the black cabbies, and new immigrants, largely of South Asian descent, are these Uber drivers. So there's a very visible difference. Also, the black cab lobby is simply more powerful, where the Ubers are not, they don't have a union, and they simply don't have that collective power that the black cabs do. So certainly there's a feeling that it's a bit David versus Goliath when it comes to this battle.
And Mandy, let me also sort of follow up that question with you when it comes to the Uber situation. I mean, if it were to be canceled and the license wasn't renewed, I'm sure thousands of people that rely on it. It's one of those things, once you've had it, it's hard to go back. Could this perhaps be more of a strategic move given the situation with the black cabs there? Or do we believe that Uber will get its license back?
Well, there has been lots of talk, and speaking to Tony Travers, the London School of Economics, and a few other economists, they do believe part of the issue was where Uber pays tax. They currently pay tax in Norway. None of those tax dollars are coming into London. So there might be some hard bargaining and a changing of the rules when it comes to this license. But the speculation is if Uber is willing to make changes, then it is likely that it might get its London license back. But in the meantime, while this appeal process is going on, Uber drivers can continue to work until a decision has been made. So there is likely a year or so as this process goes on, and if a decision is or agreement is reached outside of court, then of course they will get their license.
All right, we'll have to wait and see how all of this unfolds. Mandy, thank you for all of those updates from London. We're closer to home. India's Mobile Congress in the capital of New Delhi kicked off. The first day of the Congress saw the Indian telecom industry rivals, Bharti Airtel chairman Sunil Bharti Mittal and Reliance Industries chairman Mukesh Ambani coming together and sharing the stage. A packed house indeed. Reliance Industries chairman Mukesh Ambani, who has made his entry into the telecom sector last year with Jio, said the data is the new oil and India does not need to import it. He also said that India will rank among the top 3 economies in the next decade. Bharti Airtel chairman Sunil Bharti Mittal said Bharti Airtel will invest around $33 million this year in mobile infrastructure, adding that the industry overall will be injecting about $90 million to build digital infrastructure.
Is unparalleled in the world.
Indeed, as many of you would have read in the newspapers today,
we missed out on the first 3 industrial revolutions, namely mechanization, mass production, and automation. The 4th industrial revolution, which is fueled by connectivity, data, and artificial intelligence, has begun. India now has the opportunity to lead the 4th industrial revolution, which is set to usher in more dramatic transformations globally than the 3 previous revolutions in the next 20 years.
Some very exciting developments in this industry. I would have never imagined just even 5, 7, 8 years back that the shift in technology, the pace in technology will be such that we will be now conjuring images of a very new world that we are all going to live in. The early trailers that are being seen around AI, backed by cloud computing, AR, VR, putting at our doorstep products like robotic surgeries, AI-backed bots in the banks, in the law firms, autonomous cars, managing very complicated nuclear power stations to manufacturing machines, and all are being led by this new innovative wave of digital technology.
Well, the world's most popular microblogging portal, Twitter, has now tested product changes. Unfortunately, though, that has not impacted growth much in the past. The big picture is that Twitter hopes to get more people to use Twitter with its expansion. So it's going to expand from 140 characters to 280 characters, doubling it. The social network needs more people, given its flat user growth and declines in revenues as well as in business. But it may not be the technical limitations that is slowing down Twitter's growth. Despite trying to crack down on the trolling and abuse, many see Twitter as just too public of a forum, especially for attacks. Even U.S. President Donald Trump, who uses Twitter constantly to weigh in. Well, Twitter has also struggled to police its platform, like handling robots and bots. It has also ignored a product request for years, that is to edit tweets. So once something is tweeted, it is out there in the public unless it is deleted. Well, the new proposal now to double the character limit has got mixed reaction. Listen in.
I think it's good if it's better. I think you can just put out a lot more content. And like we were talking, basically Twitter is used for communication in also a formal way, informal way. All your leaders and anything. For example, Dipinder Goyal today announced a very big announcement on Zomato on Twitter, right? So I think that if you have more space, it's just going to help a lot more. I just hope people start using full words, unlike what they would use earlier, because I'm a grammar Nazi. But I think it's a great move.
I think it's very good idea. Because lots of people use Twitter and we can experience lots of captions, thought
So my answer will be neutral because the people who speak sensible things, they will be able to like explore themselves more. But wherein the people who post insensible things, they will talk more insensible things. If there will be more word, they will speak more insensible things. So my answer will be neutral.
Of the characters was actually a little demotivating on a daily basis, but now we're very happy with the increase of characters. Now it's 280.
Actually, I'm a digital marketing professional, and having 140 characters and promoting brands through that was quite a bit of a challenge actually. But now that it's become 280, I think it's quite a bit of a breather for all of us, because we have a lot more of word count where we can express all of what we want to convey to the public through this very effectively, and I think it's a good thing.
All right, to get perspective on this story, let's now go to Harish Bajor, a brand strategy expert, joining us now from Bengaluru. Harish, what are your thoughts about this? 140 to 280 characters, certainly mixed reaction there.
Well, actually, Twitter is trending on Twitter with Twitter 280.
Right.
My personal view is that Twitter is playing around with its brand equity. I think Twitter is known to be 140 characters. Twitter brought in brevity, and brevity is the soul of it all in this new day and age. If you really ask me, less is more. And I think as we enter into the future, less is going to be more and more. So if you ask me, I think Twitter should be talking Twitter 70 instead of Twitter 140. And I think this is a mistake. I hope Twitter learns.
Well, you know, one thing, Harish, though, that Twitter hopes to gain out of this is, of course, more users and, of course, hopefully more revenue. Unfortunately, in both of those specters, Twitter, unfortunately, not trending, if you'd like to call it. Do we anticipate that with doubling the character limit, it's really going to see that growth that it wants in terms of users and numbers financially?
I think this is short-sighted thinking on the part of Twitter, because if you really ask me, if tweets are going to be double in size, a lot of people are going to fall out of Twitter. The beauty of Twitter is its brevity, and the beauty of Twitter is people like I, who have been on Twitter for the last 7-8 years, I think we have learned how to be brief. We have learned how to be crisp. We have learned how to be, just what Twitter wants. And I think all of a sudden, 280 is going to be boring. It's going to be so yesterday. It's going to be so 2015.
All right, interesting perspective there, Harish. We'll come back to you in just a second. Let me also bring in another expert on this. We have Pernille Tranberg joining us from Denmark with regards to the story about Twitter. Great to have you. We appreciate it, ma'am. My question to you is this going to work? Is this really going to trend for Twitter? I mean, they're hoping that this brings in users and money, but what are your thoughts on that? Is this a smart move by the social media giant?
No, I don't think so. I think it's a stupid move because they're trying to do the same as Facebook. Because Facebook makes money in one way, whereas Twitter should think in other ways of making money. And just making it possible to write much longer will make it, as I agree, much more boring. Just imagine what all the words coming out of Trump if he gets so much space to write on Twitter. We have gotten used to the short sentences. And that's really cool. I believe that the shorter, the better. So I would think in other business cases, how to make money on Twitter. Don't imitate Facebook, because Facebook is on the way down.
Let me also ask you, Pernille, when it comes to that, though, some people, though, feel like this will allow people to use Twitter a little bit more, though, because they felt 140 was just too less. People really couldn't write a whole lot, and doubling it, I think one of the CEOs said, is about 50 more words. So it's a little bit more, but not drastically more. I mean, even though you talk about doubling it, the studies, I think, in Chinese, Korean, and Japanese, some of the other Asian languages, the folks who use Twitter in some of the Asian countries who use those characters, they've in fact noticed that it does well. So perhaps an example of the West looking at the East to expand. Do you agree, or not so much?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not that big a question how long a tweet you can make. The big question for Twitter is how can you make money? And if they think that they can make more money on longer tweets, it's okay with me. The problem is when they try to imitate Facebook. Instead, they should think of other business models. And I'm sure, for example, they could get money if they ask the users to pay something.
when it comes to this. U.S. President Donald Trump certainly has used Twitter extensively. In fact, we were sort of sifting through the tweets, and one of the biggest things that we found is that people are concerned that now there's going to be more opportunities or more characters from the tweet. He may be tweeting more. I mean, interesting perspective indeed, but what I could also have to say is somebody could really tweet twice, right? You've seen one of one, one of two, or, where people tweet half the message and they retweet the second part of it. So if someone is really going to tweet a long message, they can still do it with 140 characters, whether it's one tweet or two tweets. Let's talk about the political angle there, Harish. Do you think people like U.S. President Donald Trump or other politicians, this is perhaps a win for them?
Oh, yeah, it certainly looks like a win for them because the typical politician wants to talk a lot more than he's allowed to. I think Twitter, was a USP of Twitter was its brevity. And all of a sudden, if Twitter is going to expand to 280, you're giving the handle on to these kinds of guys who actually want to talk and talk a lot. And if you really ask me, Twitter, there's something called Twitterature. And if you really ask me, a whole generation has actually, learned how to play on Twitter. There are people I know who write love letters on Twitter. And you know how love is. It can't be contained in 140 characters, but these guys are able to contain them within 140 characters. I have a whole lot of love letters on my Twitter handle for one.
Bernie, let me get your thoughts on that, the political spectrum when it comes to that. U.S. President Donald Trump certainly using Twitter extensively. Is this a win for politicians, given that this may double in the near future?
It's hard to say because I don't follow Trump or many other politicians on Twitter anyway. So, of course, it's better for them to get a few more words. But I don't think really, honestly, it makes a big of a difference.
Let me also ask you this while we have you. What are the other social media platforms? What have they done right? How are they being able to stay profitable and grow their users? That's something that perhaps Twitter is struggling. Is it because of this limit, or is it because Twitter only appeals to a niche audience? Certainly journalists use it a lot. Politicians can use it. Celebrities can use it. But to the common man, to the everyday user, is Twitter as appealing? And is that why, Pernille, that it's not been able to maintain that momentum that Facebook, with 2 billion users, has been able to do so?
Well, I won't call it right what Facebook has done, because what they have done is that they have mixed up our professional lives and our private lives.
Right.
And they have told us that, you can be private in here, On Twitter, every 12-year-old knows that this is a public platform. So in a way, I think Twitter is so much more honest with what they do with data than Facebook is. So Facebook has been really kind of abusing data, and they make a lot of money on that, whereas Twitter is not abusing data in the same way. So they will have to look other ways, to other directions than Facebook, even though I know economically Facebook is a success, but ethically it's not a success.
All right, and really quickly, Harish, same question to you as we wrap this discussion up. Your thoughts on that? What has Facebook and Instagram and some of these other platforms been able to get right that perhaps Twitter hasn't when it comes to user growth and revenue?
I think each of these guys have got something right or the other. Facebook is a particular kind of a social medium. Instagram is a particular kind of a visual social medium. And Twitter is a very, very brief social medium of a different kind. Actually, the social media pie has been carved by each one of these. I think, that carving is getting affected by Twitter wanting to become a Facebook, and a Facebook tomorrow might wanting to become a Twitter. So I think, guys, Twitter, call it off.
All right, very interesting discussion indeed. We'll have to see when Twitter, of course, rolls all of this out. Right now, they're testing it with a select list of users, including Ellen DeGeneres, who's been on that lucky list. Thank you to both of you for your perspective. All right, well, staying on the social media topic, now it's Facebook's turn. Russia has set a 2018 deadline for all foreign companies to store within the country personal data on all Russian citizens. Twitter is in the process of complying. Facebook, though, is in a bit of a dilemma. Can it risk losing more than 20 million Russian users? Here's the story.
If the social media crackdown in China wasn't enough, Facebook could be shut down in Russia, and this could happen as soon as next year. Facebook has been asked to comply with a law that requires it to store personal data of Russian citizens on Russian servers. Russia's communication watchdog, Roskomnadzor, issued the threat. The same organization that had blocked access to LinkedIn's website in 2016 following a court order. The law was approved by President Vladimir Putin and came into force in 2015. All companies are required to comply with the 2018 deadline. The year presidential election are due to be held in Russia. Twitter has already notified Roskomnadzor that it plans to localize the personal data of its users by the middle of 2018. The threat comes soon after Facebook said it was handing details of 3,000 advertisements bought by a Russian agency to the US Congress as part of an investigation into attempts to swing the US election. The pressure, however, isn't surprising, given the uncertain Washington-Moscow relationship. The US government earlier this month issued a notice blocking Moscow-based Kaspersky from federal agencies and departments. The US had also been pushing tech companies like Google to hand over user data, even if it has been stored outside the United States. While China's threat to block Facebook and its messaging service WhatsApp was not official, what comes from Russia is an official warning. Local activists have been urging companies to not give in to the demands, as it would give the Kremlin access to private and sensitive data. But Facebook has to make a hard choice: give in to Russia's demands or lose as many as 23.9 million users. Bureau Report, Wion.
All right, to get perspective on this story, let's now get on our guest. We have Pranesh Prakash, a policy director for the Center for Internet and Society, joining us now on this discussion. Pranesh, great to have you on the program again. Let's talk about this situation in Russia. Facebook, perhaps in hot water, could be blocked next year if it doesn't comply. How likely is that? Could Facebook lose out on Russian users, about 20 million?
I think it's quite likely because LinkedIn has already been blocked in Russia. This is a 2015 law, so there has been ample time to actually comply with it, and Twitter has said that it will comply with it by 2018. Facebook has now a choice. But I want to first also look at the reasons for this law, for a data localization law, as it is called. There can be many, some of which have been cited by Russia are completely bogus. Security is one that has been cited, and there is no way in which this law actually enhances security. And there have been attempts to bring in such laws in India as well. But there is a genuine need that this kind of a law addresses, which is for law enforcement. Now, we have a situation where Facebook and lots of American companies, Google, Twitter, etc., they require a very lengthy process in order to give law enforcement agencies access to data that they need for crime solving.
Right.
Now,
we're gonna interrupt you for a really quick second. I want to bring in Harish Bajor again into the conversation, just to chime in the interest of time. Harish, let me also ask you when it comes to this: LinkedIn, Google, even Facebook. I mean, that is certainly a large volume of tech giants that could face repercussions in Russia. How surprised are you by that move? I mean, just yesterday we talked about China blocking WhatsApp. Your thoughts? Harish?
Well, I'm not surprised at all because, you know, as data jingoism is going to bite into every nation, it just about happened in China and just about happening in Russia, but expected to happen in several other economies because governments, peoples, individuals, corporations are going to get very sensitive about data. So unless there is a certain degree of transparency in terms of how data is being used, what data is being used, what kind of remarketing is being done, what kind of global exchanges are happening, I think the future is going to be a very, very future because data jingoism is the reality of tomorrow.